by Manu Chao. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez.
We end today's show with a woman who has been described as one of the most courageous journalists in Mexico. In 2010, Anabel Hernandez published a groundbreaking book linking top Mexican government officials to the world's most powerful drug cartels. She received so many death threats, the National Human Rights Commission assigned her 2 full-time bodyguards. Despite the threats, she continued to report. In 2012, she received the Golden Pen of Freedom Award from the World Association of Newspapers and News Publishers. Her own father was kidnapped and murdered 13 years ago.
Anabel Hernandez's 2010 book on the Mexican drug wars has just been translated into English. It's called Narcoland, the Mexican drug lords and their godfathers. She joins us here in New York before heading back to Mexico. It's an honor to have you with us, Anabel.
Thanks for inviting me, and thanks for your interest in what is happening in Mexico. That's important.
Explain what's happening. What's happening with the drug cartels, the connection to the government?
Well, first I have to explain that I have been investigating the drug cartels for 7 years. I mean, I have enough information to give my opinion about it. So what I found is in Mexico doesn't exist really a war against the drug cartels. What exists in the government of Felipe Calderón was a war between the cartels, and the government took a side of that war, protecting to the Sinaloa cartel. That's why all the violence and crime grow up in Mexico.
Well, what you describe is very similar to what happened in Colombia 2 decades ago when the Colombian government more or less sided with the Cali cartel against the Medellin cartel. Could you talk about some of what you uncovered in terms of government officials directly or implicated in, at the same time that they were fighting the drug war, being involved with the cartels?
Well, what I found in official documents and by testimonies is that the Secretary of Public Security in Mexico, Genaro Garcia Luna, that was the most powerful chief of police in the government of Felipe Calderón, he was really involved with the drug cartel, with the Sinaloa cartel. He was in the payroll as the most important chief of the police, of the federal police. So these guys not just protect to the Sinaloa cartel, they also help them to traffic drugs and money in the most important airports in Mexico.
You name a number of prominent government officials. Talk about who they are.
Well, I'm talking about the Genaro Garcia Luna. I'm also put the names of other presidents. Before Felipe Calderón. What I found is since the decades of 60s until the last day of the government of Ernesto Zedillo, who was the last president that became from the party PRI, all that governments used to protect all the cartels. I mean, the drug cartels in Mexico, as you know, is not new. It's a very old story. That governments make them very powerful.
So what does it mean when the U.S. government gives millions to the Mexican government? You say the Mexican for the war on drugs, and you say the Mexican government is not fighting against the drugs, but as part of the drug cartels and supporting them.
What I discovered in my investigation is that much of that money, much of that technology, much of that equipment now is in the hands of the drug cartels.
Well, but the amazing story is here you have Felipe Calderón launching this war that has led to 80,000 deaths in Mexico, and yet you're saying that his main federal police chief was involved with one of the cartels. What's been the reaction in Mexico among justice officials or authorities to some of your revelations?
Well, when I published this book, I really was able to put many of the proofs in the book when it was published in Spanish, because I, of course, thought that it maybe could be very difficult to the people understand and believe what is really happening. So when I published it, the government didn't say anything. They just keep quiet and and still protecting to the Sinaloa cartel. But now I think the society in Mexico really knows that bloody war, it was just a shame. It was fake. It wasn't true. The federal government didn't want to fight against the drug cartels. The federal government chose to fight against some cartels, enemies of the Sinaloa cartel, and protect the Sinaloa cartel.
You know, I shake as you speak, Anabel Hernandez, because Mexico is one of the dangerous countries for journalists to work in, especially Mexican journalists. I want to talk about your safety, but first, your father was a journalist. Can you talk about what happened to him?
Well, my father, that represents everything for me, was kidnapped and murdered on December of 2000. He was a businessman. He was not a journalist. He was just a businessman. In that year, many businessmen were kidnapped for a little gangs just for money. And he was murdered when we claimed for the police justice to the police. The chief of the police said that, well, if you want justice, if you want that we investigate, you have to pay. Of course, we choose not pay. My family choose not pay because you can buy the justice. So until now, I don't know who killed my father, and I learned that corruption hurts.
And he was killed in Mexico City.
Yes, he was kidnapped in Mexico City, and his body was found in the Mexico State. It's a very near place to Mexico City.
What about you? You travel with 2 bodyguards?
Well, yes. Since I published this book on December of 2010, I received threats of death, not from the head of the Sinaloa cartel or the other cartels. The threats that I received came from the chief of the police, Genaro Garcia Luna. So
How do you know that?
Because I have an informant that called me suddenly in that December of 2010. He called me, it's really urgent to see you. I met him, and he told me I'm coming from a meeting of police. And that police were talking about that Genaro Garcia Luna are trying to contract some police to kill you, simulating a car accident or something like that. And he's offering better salaries and better positions in the police if they do it. So that information really saved my life. And I put a demand against Genaro Garcia Luna and the National Commission of Human Rights ordered to put me to these bodyguards.
I wanted to ask you about this issue of how widespread the violence is in Mexico. About a year ago, we had Jorge Castaneda on the show, former foreign minister under Vicente Fox, and we asked him about the drug war and he said that while it was tragic and it was a mistake of the Calderón administration, he believed it was largely a regional situation. He said Juarez is not Mexico, that most of Mexico, Mexico City and other places, people don't have the same kind of fears that they do in the areas in the north, like Juarez and Tijuana. I'd like your reaction to that and your sense of how widespread the problems have been in Mexico as a result of this disastrous, as you say, fake war.
I mean, Jorge Castaneda is just one politic in Mexico, and politics sometimes don't say the truth. The truth is that now in Mexico there are many spaces under the control of the drug cartels and also under the control of medium gangs that kidnap people, that extortion people, and now Mexico is a very dangerous place. It's sadly to say it because I am Mexican, but I'm a journalist. I have the duty to say the truth. That in Mexico there are many places worse than Ciudad Juarez.
What is the role of the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, the U.S. agency in Mexico?
Well, I really now investigating that because I really cannot believe how the U.S. government of the Drug Enforcement Administration really didn't saw what is happening in Mexico. And I found one document in 2011 in one court of Chicago that really proves that the Drug Enforcement Administration has a connection with the Sinaloa cartel.
Can you tell us who Joaquin Guzman, leader of the Sinaloa's cartel, is?
Well, what I found in my investigation is that he was just the son of one farmer. He is an illiterate. He almost cannot read and write. He is a vicious man. He is alcoholic. He consumes drugs. I mean, he's nobody. He had to leave the school when he was 7 years old. What is about my book is how this man, that is almost nobody, now is the most powerful drug lord in the world. That is the answer that you can find in my book.
And he remains at large. He remains free somewhere in Mexico still?
Yes, he is. Of course, he's in Mexico, and I'm also sure that he's everywhere because he has the power to buy the state. He has the power to break the laws with his money. So he can be.
You
whatever.
say he was escorted through the prison dressed as a government official, accompanied by conspiring government officers, out to a helicopter and whisked away to freedom?
Yes, what I found in the criminal case of the escape of El Chapo Guzman is that he didn't escape as the official version in the laundry car with the help of one man. He really escaped by the help of the federal government, and they put them he used a uniform of police and took in an helicopter.
Annabelle, what needs to be done? And what makes you so brave?
Sorry, I didn't.
What needs to be done, and what makes you so brave?
I really think that the governments, not just the Mexican government, really have to start fight against the drug cartels. I mean, the way to start to fight against the drug cartels is put all that officials in jail, put the businessmen that help to the drug cartels in jail, put to the directors of the banks that launder their money in jail. And then you can make a huge campaign against consume of drugs. And if you cut the market, you really can cut the business.
Would legalizing drugs or decriminalize them help?
I'm not sure if Mexico, for example, is really ready for that. We can see options. And about the second question is because, as I said, corruption hurts. The biggest problem in Mexico is the corruption. The corruption is the mother of El Chapo Guzman and the mother of all of the other cartels.
I want to thank you so much for your work, for your bravery. Have a safe journey home. Annabelle Hernandez. Her book is called Narcoland. That does it for our